I used to always enter the new year with this like punishment almost.
Doubt is removed by action.
Eating the frog.
The locking of the apps on your phone.
And not bringing the phone into the bed.
Going to bed and getting up at the same time every day.
Between every stimulus and response, there's a space. And in between that space, you have a choice.
The prison is in your mind and the key is in your pocket.
So have 10 minutes in the morning and 10 minutes in the evening is 2% of your day.
Like if you write down your goals, you're actually 39% more likely to succeed in them. And then if you actually write down your goals and you get accountability, you're like, I think 68% more likely to achieve them.
Hey there, and welcome to the Future Fitness Lifestyle. If you're passionate about staying fit, healthy, and mentally sharp, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Matt Cooney, and each week we dive into the latest trends, expert insights, and actionable tips to help you take your fitness, nutrition, and mental well-being to the next level. Ready to level up your health and fitness? Let's jump in and get started. Welcome back to the Future Fitness Lifestyle. It is the first podcast of 2025. We are back. We took a little break. I think it was 2 weeks over Christmas. Was not meant to be this long. Me and Eve, last week we were meant to do this podcast, but we traveled to Bali and we slept for 15 hours. So we woke up 4 hours late for the podcast. And so apologies to everybody else here for that. That won't happen again. But we have a full house here for today's podcast. Sharon is back, and yeah, how is everyone feeling after the Christmas break?
Feeling good, feeling rested.
Feeling good after the Christmas break, but not so good right now because our shower is not working. Because right now, Matt and Eve, it is absolutely like the coldest day in Ireland in years, and our
Tommy without his cold shower.
I've not had a cold shower right now before this.
Yeah, Tommy, roll around in the grass.
Just go out and roll in the
How
snow.
many years, Tommy? That's like are you breaking a streak of like 1,000 days? No, I'm gonna have
More.
to call somebody.
No, definitely. I haven't, definitely not that long, but yeah.
Hey, the day's not over yet.
Oh no, I'll definitely be having one somewhere, but it's not first thing in the morning.
If it starts
I feel
raining,
like-
we'll get on it.
I feel like we still haven't properly started 2025 yet. It's like from talking to people, it seems to be like most people started there like yesterday, Monday the 6th, but everybody still seems to be only getting into it, especially with the snow coming and everything else. It's like it's like a test drive at the moment. We're waiting for it to fully start. Is everyone else like that?
I think everyone was ready to start. Everyone was like, okay, let's get to Monday and the schools will be back and we'll be back to routine. And then it was like, no, the schools are not opening.
Yeah.
Routine.
I like it though. I think it's encouraging like this little slowness of entering the year, being a bit more prepared.
And I think it's a good way to start because, usually when you start something, everyone's motivated. They're like, even I'm saying to a few clients, they're like, no distractions this year. There's going to be nothing coming up. And then it's like the first day you go to do something, you get hit with snow, you can't leave your house. It's like, yeah, real life is, it's not even giving you the couple of weeks to kind of give you that false sense of hope. It's like, okay, yeah, life has hit me. I have to deal with it now again.
Even like getting for a walk, you can't. It's so hard to do. Like I haven't gone walking on outside in days. Pete is so cross. He has all my runners brought in from the hallway looking to go for a walk, but I can't.
I think it's nice. I think it's nice the way the new year kind of starts in the middle of the week. So I think New Year's Day was last Wednesday. So I think it's nice to give yourself that couple of days to bed into the new year. All your goals for 2025 done in 2024, ready to go by the 1st of January. I think that would be too overloading and too overwhelming. For me, definitely still needed a couple of days just to think about what I needed to do. And of course, we had the workshop obviously on Saturday, which was really, really beneficial to just sit down and actually talk through things and then to break the goals down into ways of achieving them. And then I know it is saying that we all like to say I'll start on Monday, but really for me, Monday was the beginning of the year for me to bed myself back into getting back into my routines and structures and that. But again, not to completely overwhelm myself with starting every single goal on Monday, because I haven't. I have started a good few of them, but not every single one of them. Like I said, I just taken things very easy, and I'll build myself up over the next couple of weeks to get myself going then into 2025.
Yeah, I think as well, even for me, like everybody seemed to be sick over Christmas and like obviously out of routine and stuff. And even starting back this week, like my mind is like wants to go hell for leather. Like my mind is very motivated, but my body is actually still not there. And it's like having to tell myself, you know, it's all relax, but don't try and like win the year in the first week. That's not going to happen. It's just like let yourself slowly come back into it. And I think Roisin, you said this last year. Maybe you didn't, but I think you did. You said like using January as kind of like a trial, an experiment month to kind of see what works, what doesn't, and then from February kind of you kind of have a better idea of, okay, yeah, now it's time to really like what worked, what didn't, what I'm going to keep doing, what I'm not, and then kind of push forward from that.
Yeah, I think, well, I like to work with the actual season of like spring is when we have the most energy. So using January and February as little trial and error, but also building that habit and that routine. You're almost your autopilot for when the busier months come. You don't really need to worry about that, and you have that energy and you're prepped.
And even I see it with clients and stuff. I remember that from last year. It was really, really good. And I remember that, like, not going hell for leather the first week of January when you said that. But like, even for clients, you know, who came to the goal setting webinar, who were filling in their check-in forms this week, have their goals set. None of us are going, you know, even myself getting my feedback from Eve, it's like nobody's going straight in this week. It's like just getting back to the basics this week, next week. And then we'll start to kind of to really dial in on things and push on a little bit more for the coming months. But right now, at this time after Christmas, it's just getting back to the basics and, you know, like that, Matt, not trying to tick all your goals in the first week of January.
Yeah. And I think that's why you said, Sharon, let's keep today light as well, because it's a time of year where there's so much kind of thrown at you that I think it can all get lost, you know, whereas what we're going to talk about today is lessons from 2024 and kind of life hacks as well. So anything, that's why I wanted to do hacks, because usually that's a bit on the lighter side. Sometimes the lessons can get deep. Essentially, just sharing things that we learnt from the last 12 months. And what way I think we'll do it is maybe just go around in like in a circular fashion, but one at a time, just share one hack or lesson, and then we'll kind of chat through it, and we'll try and get through as many as we can in the next 45 minutes or so. So I want to start with the hacks first. Any little life hacks? So does anyone want to go first? Nominate yourself, or do you want me? So any life hacks you've had over the last 12 months? Or I'll just call one of you random.
I'll jump in. It kind of relates to, it was something I wanted to say there before we kind of started this. It was something come up. I suppose, is it a hack? But you can consider it a hack. What was coming to my mind when Sharon was speaking about was a big word is what you could say it's a life lesson from last year, but also just implemented for this year, is really what you want to be doing now is just building momentum. And I know it was something that you said before, Cooney, so I'm going to wrap it off you. You could say a life hack from you is that doubt is removed by action. Action creates momentum. Momentum creates progress, and progress creates results. So if you can follow
I
that.
have to stop you just there.
That's today's post.
Roisin will know. It's so funny. That is going on Instagram today.
Yeah.
Me and Ro were definitely thinking the same thing as you were talking. I'm like, how do you know this? This is like MC Future Fitness brain. There's one brain. We're all the one brain.
In sync. So, like I said, if you want to put that posted, Matt's Instagram post today, if you want to save that, share it. I think it's a really valuable insight to carry around. And I just think having that intention of trying to build momentum rather than trying to do too many things at once, simply just taking it one step at a time and just using that momentum to give you the either inspiration or the motivation to to keep going can be a massive shift for you towards you succeeding in progressing with your goals.
We're going to move on to Eve. Eve is going to give us a hack.
My
You've been quiet so
hack
far.
is probably one of my first one is, I know we kind of talked about this, and I think it's actually kind of relevant as well with January, is life lesson from 2024 for me was that actually setting a timeline with goals. And obviously we all know the importance of writing down goals. And like obviously writing down your goals will increase your chance of success with them. But for me, like I was very vague with goals before. I just write down, oh yeah, finish my course or, start reading. But I was never actually properly getting specific with my goals and actually setting like a timeline in place. Even like as an example, last year, like the year before, I had a goal to finish my course, but that's all I wrote. I never kind of broke it down into, okay, when am I going to finish it by? What do I need to do in order to have it finished by that time? So yeah, that's the main one. Then even as my other goal was to start reading, and again I failed with this goal about 4 or 5 years in a row, I'd say. Whereas last year I was a lot more specific with it. I was like, okay, I want to read 10 books this year. I was going to do 12, but I said I'd kind of give myself a bit of leeway just in case I missed reading. And then 12 books in the year, or sorry, 10 books in the year. And then what do I need to kind of do in order to achieve that goal? So obviously about 1 book per month, about 10 minutes reading every day. And that's definitely been a game changer for me.
Yeah, I think that's huge because what just pops up to me is like deadlines drive decisions. And how many of us have like done that before? I'm definitely guilty with like, I'm going to start reading or I'm going to start journaling. I'm going to start like just naming these kind of random things, but it's never specific, And I always go, there's, what's it called? Parkinson's Law? I think it's called Parkinson's Law. It's like any activity that you have I'm going to butcher it, but it's basically like you will fit the activity into the time that you give it. So, for example, everyone has experienced this if you went to college, you get an assignment to do, they give you 3 months. You do it in the last week. Or if they would have given you 2 weeks to do it, you would have had it in 2 weeks. If they give you 2 months, you do it in 2 months. You spread it out over it. So this is like this is a life hack. You can collapse the time by putting deadlines on it. And I know, Sharon, you were like smiling there, so you can definitely agree on this one, I think.
Yeah, and it's something actually I'm doing in the last couple of weeks. I saw this thing, can't remember where I saw it, but they were like, they were doing it in terms of like, when it comes to cleaning the house, that if you were giving yourself all day, like you're probably not going to do anything, but it's like set a timer for 40 minutes, get as much as you can done. And I've started doing that, and I'm even doing it since I came back to work with like check-ins, that there's a kind of timer going, and it just speeds you up that little bit. You take a little bit of a break once the timer stops, and then you get back into it. But it really does help you to be more efficient with things, especially if you're someone who maybe kind of gives yourself too much time, which...
Yeah, and I definitely think that was actually, that was actually one of my hacks, was like blocking out your days to do certain tasks at certain times. And like eating the frog, I know that's probably one of Matt's biggest life hacks ever, but like do your tasks that you're kind of dreading the most, or the hardest thing, doing that first. And if I do that first thing in the morning or as my first job of the day, like it just gets easier from there. Whereas in the past I would have left that hardest job until last, and then you're kind of like dreading it all day, or you keep putting it off. Whereas now I just do it first thing, and I'm like, nothing. Once you've that done, you're like, okay, the rest of the day is pretty much going to be a lot easier and smooth sailing by doing that. Yeah, I'm surprised you didn't have Eat the Frog written down.
Yeah, they're all hacks. And it's actually something. No,
Well, it's not about this year.
Yeah,
or last year.
I started. Well, it was last year. I did start doing that with both things that you just said. So I actually joined them together, Sharon and Eve. Do the hardest thing first, and then I also use a timer now. So I have a phone countdown timer, and so literally when I start work, it starts. 2 hours is put on. I put in what's it called? It's like beats. Those binaural beats. Is that it? It's basically like for flow. And then my hardest task is there for 2 hours. I don't leave. And like Sharon said, it's like as much as I get done is done in that 2 hours, and like even for me logically, I'm like, okay, if I do that 5 days a week, that's 10 hours of like work on the hardest task I have to do in our business, you know. And I'm like, that's so much more productive than sometimes you have those tasks and literally you would put it off for 6 months, you know, because you're like, oh yeah, I'll get to that once I get all these check-ins that done, then this thing will get this project or whatever. And it's like, yeah, it's made a massive difference, and I've forgotten completely that
I think all my life hacks
you were talking.
last year would
I don't
be
know what I
your
did
life
to do
hacks
that.
the year before, because I kind of like I take time to warm up.
It just takes, yeah, you won't listen to me for at least a year.
You let Matt test them
You
out
see
first,
what
and then you're
works.
like, okay.
No, what happens is I tell her about it, and then she hears it off someone else a year later, and then actually does it, and it's like, oh my god, that's the best thing ever. Did you hear
Yeah,
this
he
guy
gets the one
doing
up.
this? And I'm like, yeah, that's great. My heart is just sinking in my chest. I'm like, yeah, it's great. He's great, isn't he?
It's a great idea. The main thing is keep doing it.
Okay, Ro, who are we next? Ro, we go
Yeah.
life hack.
I'd say a big one that I kind of did a lot more consistency with this year would be the locking of the apps on your phone. So I just set my social media apps to lock from 9 p.m. to 11 a.m. most days. I give myself Saturday off. But I didn't stick to it the whole time, but it stops you from seeing notifications. And if you click into an app, it asks you like, do you actually want to, do you want to go in here? So it stops that like instant clicking of apps. And it just means my first, again, like time blocking, the first block of my morning, my start of my day, I don't have any distractions from social media, and it means I get more work done. So that's probably the biggest thing. I think it's something that everyone has an issue or struggles with, is social media and clicking on things.
Is that an app
So I
or?
recommend, and everyone can do it on their phones.
Yeah, is it?
No, it's on iPhones. You just go to
Okay.
screen time.
Because I
And you
was on
can
an app,
customize
I
it.
had an app last year that gave you a timer for certain apps. So like I'd set Instagram 30 minutes per day or whatever, 45 minutes. And every time you're open the app, there's like a timer in the top corner that's like counting down. So I found that really helped me reduce my screen usage, because I was actually like going into the app, I'd see the timer going down. I'd be like, okay, is this worth my valuable 30 minutes? Or am I just like, I'm like, oh no, this it's not worth it. It's not worth it. And click out of it. Or obviously, if you're looking at something or doing something. But it does make you be a lot more aware of how much you're actually on, like, whatever it is, Instagram or Facebook.
Eve, how do you
Start
feel
crying.
when the timer goes down to like 2 or 3 minutes?
Yeah. It's like that
It
countdown
overflows
show.
its videos
Can you
quick.
I'm like, oh, I gotta get the last bit of
Video,
scrolling in.
quick.
Or is it? Yeah. And it's funny though, because we asked a reflection question in the goal setting webinar last weekend, and it was like, what is the least valuable way you spend your time? And 100%, like pretty much 100% of people said scrolling, like doom scrolling. And it's yeah, it's funny. Something I do, that my phone goes black and white or like grayscale or something at like 9:30 p.m. every day. And if you've ever, this is a little hack, if you ever want to reduce the amount you use your phone, go look at social media in black and white. It is not it's a weird thing. It's not half as entertaining. You're like, being when I'm being bold, I have to turn it off because I'm like, I want to see so it's funny how much the colors and everything around it is affects us, it's a weird thing. You should just try it to see what it even looks like. It's yeah, the old movies, they were all in black and white, weren't they? That's why the black and white, bring back the black and white TVs.
I know something that, talking to a few clients this year who had issues with social media, and that was a good tool and technique I used with them was getting them to write down a goal or an intention that if they spend, let's say, over 30 minutes on social media at nighttime, then they'd have to pay, there'd be a consequence to that. So it's almost like signing a contract with themselves that, let's say, if they spent over the period of time that they wanted to be on social media, that if they went over that time, that let's say they had to get up in that moment straight away and do 10 push-ups, because essentially what you want to do is trying to make the brain or make your mind think that you have to go and do behavior that's going to take effort. And if you have a commitment to yourself that you know that you have to go do something hard, if you break this a habit that you want to instill, it's not 100% proof, but it can also help you move away from something that you don't want to be doing. And I know it had some good success with people this year, and because essentially people don't want to be doing something hard, especially late in the evening, because I know a lot of people have struggled with dealing with social media late at night and that. So it was a nice little technique that people used to help them try and come away from screen time and that.
It's like a swear jar, but for social media.
Yeah.
I swear, Jared.
Yeah. Sharon, did you give a hack yet?
I will give a hack. It's a hack I have for a long time, but I realized the other night I kind of didn't do it, and I really noticed. I was like, Jesus, I have to get back doing this. In regards to social media, spending time scrolling, is not bringing your phone into the room with you, or not bringing the phone into the bed. I think that's probably one of my best hacks over the last couple of years. I'll never bring the phone into bed. Once I go upstairs, I leave the phone, depending if I need the alarm, I'll leave it kind of at the other end of the room or outside the door, but not having it. And then that's a double whammy, because you have to get up to turn off the alarm.
Yeah.
But if you, the other night I did it, I brought the phone, into the bed. I just lay down and I had the phone in my hand, and I was sitting there for about 40 minutes like that, just scrolling. I was like, what have I been doing for 40 minutes?
Who am I?
Who am I? Not that I don't scroll, but I wouldn't scroll in bed. But it's I was like, I should be asleep by now. But you just kind of get lost in a little rabbit hole, and next minute, it's
Yeah.
next
minute.
bedtime. Leave your phone outside.
Yeah.
I would have to second
You're looking
that.
at some random person in America that you've never heard of before that is like doing the most random recipes or something, just completely, you're like, this is the biggest waste of my life ever. Or you're looking at their life, watching them, and like, oh my god, I'd never heard of this person 20 minutes ago.
I was putting the phone away from the bed for the alarm. That's something I did this year, whereas I was either putting the phone at the other end of the room or outside the room, and it makes you get up for your first alarm. And you actually have to physically get out of bed. So once you're out of the comfort of the blankets, then you're like, okay, cool, we're up. And I've been getting up a lot better for my first alarm, rather than like grabbing the phone and like turning off the alarm in your sleep and not realizing you've done it. Yeah, so that's definitely a hack.
We're all doing that. It's funny because I started that last year as well. I swear there's this like time delay between. I even find like, I don't know, if you can press snooze within 2 seconds or something, you'll get back in. If it's like 5 seconds away, that like extra, literally 2 or 3 seconds, it's like for me, I'm like, yeah, I'm not going back. You know?
Yeah.
Versus like, obviously if it's right next to you, you just press it. But even sometimes if it was I just had to get out of bed and just reach over, I would get back in. But if I have to get to another room or it's like a few steps away, I'm good at it, because I'm like, no, don't, just get up.
Yeah. You're just like, keep walking, don't turn around.
Yeah. It's
Bro,
like that
did you
2
ever
seconds.
see
It's
Mel
like
Robbins'
2 seconds.
video on getting up when her alarm went off and she didn't want to, and her hack?
No.
5, 4, 3,
Did
2,
you ever
1.
see that video she did? It's so good. She literally, like, the way you don't actually physically want to get up out of the bed? She like just swings her legs over, drops her legs to the floor, and crawls until she's ready.
Okay, I'm going to try that.
I did it a
Does
couple
it
of
work?
times.
Eve,
I
you
won't
probably
lie.
need that.
It works.
Eve, you'll frighten the shit out of Matt. Eve crawls into the kitchen.
Well, I'm pretty much dragged out of bed every day, so crawling would be a step
Nearly
up.
does anyway.
Timer on. Come on, Eve.
So actually, that's because we're talking about sleep. I'll share another. I don't know if this is a life lesson or a hack. I think it's a bit of both. For me, over the last 12 months, it's definitely going to bed and getting up at the same time every day. It's actually amazing what that can do for like your regularity of everything. And we talked about this on a podcast a few podcasts ago. Ro, you were saying like what it feels like to know what like good sleep is and rested. I had this. It only happened to me probably twice, maybe 3 times last year where I was going to sleep and waking up without an alarm at the same time every day. And that's when I was at my best, as in performance, sleep, everything. And even the difference here was the things that disrupted it was like either alcohol or even the weekends, just late nights at the weekends. And so I think if you can get in as much as possible, go to bed, wake up at the same time, it's a game changer. And obviously for people at the weekend, I don't mean, when I say the same time, I don't mean like it has to be 10:01 and get up at 5:57. It's not. It's around the same
Within
time.
an hour, yeah.
Even at the weekend, if you stretch it an hour, you know, if you're going to bed at 10 usually, an hour seems to still be okay, or give yourself an hour extra in bed. Once you start going like 2-3 hours away, and there's actually some research I think on this with like Danny Lennon had it before. It's nearly like social jet lag, I think he called it, from people who have like completely different sleep pattern at the weekend. So it's like, you know, if they're staying up to 1-2 in the morning, you can actually feel like the same symptoms as jet lag, as you just from the big shift in your sleep rhythm, you know. Yeah, I thought it was interesting, and even because last year I was kind of like I was using myself as a little experiment at times to see like, hey, when I dial everything in, how kind of good can I feel? And that was like for me now, it's like the indicator. It's like, okay, when I'm going to bed, I'd say able, like as in falling asleep basically straight away and getting up without my alarm, I know that like my body is in the best position in terms of recovery performance. So yeah, that was definitely the big one for me last year.
So
Yeah,
for
the
me as well, it's set an alarm even at the weekend to keep that kind of routine. Early morning starts, you know, especially working on a Tuesday, I have to be in before 7:15. I'd have a couple of mornings where I'm up and gone early. So even at the weekend, like I still set an alarm. It sounds a bit mad, but I do still set an alarm to keep it somewhere close to that. Obviously, it's not as early, but to keep in that kind of routine to make it easier.
Yes,
When I have
sleeping in
early
at the weekend
starts.
is like probably one of the worst things you can do
That's
for your sleep, because when Monday comes around, you're just going to feel 10 times worse trying to get back into normal routine with sleep again. So yeah, better off to get up early and have a nap if you need extra sleep.
And I've even found as well, when I get like knocked out of my sleep routine, to get it to like I won't call it optimal, as good as it can be, it takes me probably at least 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. So it's like, it doesn't just fix itself in a few days, which is obviously difficult. Like, I'm not a robot and I have to live a life as well, but it's like, it's funny how long it takes to really get back to that, like,
And how
optimal
short it takes to
living
absolutely
once you've
destroy
been
it.
off it, which was interesting as well.
And how short it takes to absolutely destroy it. Takes about 3 weeks to get perfect,
Yeah,
and you
I
can
know,
destroy
yeah.
that in progress in one day.
Yeah, I know.
the most structured and routine time I ever had in my entire life was when I did the competition, Matt. And
I knew you were going to say
with that, the sleep, like particularly the last probably like 3 to 4 weeks of it, I had implemented that strategy, you know, of going to bed at the same time and waking up at the same time. And when you wake up, you feel absolutely amazing. I remember like the last couple of weeks, I didn't even need an alarm. Body was so routine at that time to wake up at a time I didn't even need an alarm, and it was like 5:30, 6 o'clock every single morning. Wasn't tired, wasn't groggy, woke up with energy, uh, feeling good. The same feeling I get from waking up after having a cold shower, that was like the time that I experienced that type of feeling. Not to say that every single person should go through something like that, but it does show you the positive impact of having a routine and having structure in your life and what it can actually do for your productivity and essentially how it's going to make you feel throughout the day. Something that definitely would encourage people to do is trying to find a bedtime and a wake up time sooner enough. And it's interesting to hear you say, thanks for bringing that up about, you know, if you can keep it in that kind of that 1 hour zone. I think that's interesting for people to take away from that, is that it doesn't have to be exactly the minute, the second. it can be in around that time frame.
Yeah.
I
It is
think the
funny though, 'cause
timing
even
here
in
with that as well is really important. You know, I think right now at the moment, like it's hard to wake up feeling good and feeling energetic and waking up early. Like, you know, it's hard, but it's kind of now getting into that routine, especially after Christmas. Like I know even myself over Christmas, I just kind of let it go and slept as much as I needed. But it's getting back into the routine of that. And even like with some of my clients this week, okay, they can't get to the gym or maybe their steps mightn't be ideal, but one thing I'm getting them to focus on is, you know, get back into their proper sleep routine, get back into getting up early,
yeah.
even though, you know, they're not maybe working from home or the kids aren't back at school, but it's getting into that over these next few days so that they're not thrown completely in at the deep end next week.
I think something that helps as well is trying to like wean yourself back in with sleep. So, for example, if you're getting up at 8 a.m., don't just try and get up at 6. Go like 7:45. Do that for a day or two, then go like 7:30, and then get yourself back. Because I find that other way just doesn't like I don't know, it doesn't work as well. You know, if you can. Some people maybe it does, but I just found when you do it that slower approach, you feel better versus like when you try and go from 8 to 6 a.m. You're like you actually kind of hate getting up, so it's like you don't want to, you know. Versus when you do it slowly, you're like, yes, I want to actually start getting up at this time.
And again, it's like changing that energy around it from instead of like almost punishing yourself and being so strict about, right, this week we're getting up every morning at 6 a.m., being like, okay, we're going to try at 6 a.m., but like having that little window that like you can sleep in a little bit. Because that's what even for me this week, there was a, like yesterday morning, I was like, nope, not getting up. And I turned over. And instead of feeling like I'm after fucking up on my week, I'm like, no, I never committed to like this strict routine. So it's like taking that pressure off yourself. And
Yeah, I like that.
And one
What
big
I'll
thing
do
about
now,
taking away pressure from yourself is like removing that sense of I have to do this and changing it to I want to do this. Because when you change that narrative in your head, and you switch that perspective, it becomes like an intrinsic motivation for you that you actually want to do this, and it becomes a lot easier then for you to be able to actually go ahead and implement whatever you are doing, because there's a real sense of you're doing this for you and not for someone else.
yeah, that's a huge hack actually that even the last couple of years I've done is I used to always enter the new year with this like punishment almost because, and I feel like a lot of people do, you're punishing yourself for the 2 weeks you took at Christmas, for the overindulging, for drinking, for not hitting the gym. And then you start new year with this like, oh, must get back training. I need to restrict my diet. I have to punish myself. And you put this force and this pressure on yourself. And that's why most people get to February and they feel like they failed because they couldn't stick to these crazy expectations they put on themselves. Whereas when you change it to like compassionate and curiosity and you are like, oh, I get to decide what I want to do, you take ownership. And again, like you said, Tommy, you'll end up probably speeding up quicker because now you feel like you're in control of how you want to go about like building up yourself for the year rather than feeling like you're punishing yourself.
yeah, and something that popped into my head when you're saying that as well, because you mentioned the bodybuilding competition, Tal. That was kind of the mindset I took. There was like 2 or 3 things that I just kept in my head the whole time doing the bodybuilding prep, and it was like one was like you're choosing to do this. So it's like I used to always say I'm like there's people in the world who are literally starving. You can eat at any time, and I'm choosing to essentially starve myself. You know, so I'm like it always brought me back out of it. Was like I'm like yeah, there's literally people starving. You're not. You're fine. And then when you use that kind of reframe, even Sharon, you bought me the book Man's Search for Meaning.
It's a great book,
If you
isn't
want,
it?
yeah, if you want to feel like grateful, you can do that because even in the morning, I'm like reading stories about the concentration camp in Auschwitz and being like, yeah, it's okay, everything's fine. But when you hear some of the things that they went through, it's kind of like it just gives you perspective, you know. And it's like, yeah, my gym session won't really hurt me that much, you know. I'm not going to a gas chamber.
I read that during lockdown, and like that, I remember reading about them being out walking in the snow, like being forced to walk miles and miles in the snow, and like then I'd happily get up and go for a walk. It would be like, okay, yeah, you know.
Yeah. So if you're feeling sorry for yourself this January, get the book A Man's Search for Meaning.
Just on that, like literally, I think a big thing that people can take away from this is that whatever experience you were having in life, whatever way you were thinking, whatever way you were feeling, whatever way that your story is telling you in that moment, know that you can change it, that you can change how you view that moment, how you view that experience that you're having right now, how you're feeling, how you're thinking, that you can choose a different pathway to go down. A big thing that I never read that book, but it's a quote that I say every single morning, and it's something that I learned from him, Viktor Frankl, is that between every stimulus and response, there is a space. And in between that space, you have a choice. And within that choice then is where the growth is. So in any particular moment, in any particular time, you always have a choice in how you want to deal with that situation or that experience. If you want to still follow the same behavioral patterns that you always follow, like most of us do, of course we do, we're familiar creatures, that is the way that we're wired and built. But if you want to grow, if you want to evolve, if you want to let go of the coping mechanisms that are preventing you from taking progress in your life, it's those moments where you choose to do something different. If you choose to feel a different way, to think a different way, and then essentially to behave a different way, that's where you're going to make the change in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Mic drop.
I felt like saying a mic drop there at the end.
Yeah. It was good you had the quote, because I was like, I was thinking up the quote and I'm like, I don't remember it word for word, but I was like, I knew the start, so I'm glad you said it.
Edith Edgar, actually, she wrote The Gift, and she actually wrote her books after reading Viktor Frankl's. But like that, she said, you know, just because someone else is going through something hard, it doesn't mean that you can't allow yourself to feel how you're feeling. Like, you don't need to compare or minimize how you're feeling, or if you're struggling with things, just because someone else is struggling more. But something that she also says, and I think, is it in The Choice or is it on The Gift? But her quote is the prison is in your mind and the key is in your pocket.
Like that.
Yeah, you know, it's kind of, we can create these things that are keeping us stuck in our head, but it's just, you know, like that, taking action, using momentum, and starting moving in the direction we want to go.
I think we have enough time for probably one more round of hacks or life lessons. So we're going to go, Eve, I think you started. We're going to go with Eve.
I have some random life hacks. I'm like, this is getting very deep. And then I'm seeing these like stupid life hacks that I've written down.
Yeah. I have a couple of stupid ones as well. So let's go.
That's good.
If you eat with chopsticks, you'll eat slower.
But I do have a good one that I think is important.
That's such a good one.
I won't do a stupid one. I'll do a good one. So, because I think this is more valuable. But yeah, well, obviously, you know, the importance of morning routines, but I think I really noticed this helped me a lot last year. Was I used to be like someone who'd kind of get up, rush myself in the mornings and, you know, get straight into work. Got to get started as quick as possible to get as much work done as possible. Whereas now I'm kind of taking a little bit of time for myself in the morning, and it's only like 10 to 15 minutes, having a coffee, reading a book for 10 minutes. I think it's not even 10 minutes reading. It's probably like, could be 10 pages of a book. And by taking that time for myself in the morning, then I'm starting my day feeling a lot better, starting work feeling a lot better, and able to get a lot more done with my time. Because I'm basically putting some energy into myself first so that I can kind of give my energy then to everyone else. And I think, just since I started doing that, obviously I had a lot of resistance to doing it. I used to kind of think that this is wasting time. I should be busy. I should be starting straight into things, or, you know, go. But now I really see the benefit that has had.
Just on that, it's something I say to my clients as well, is giving yourself 10 minutes in the morning and 10 minutes in the evening is 2% of your day. So that's like, when you look at it like that, you're like, oh my God, I'm not quote unquote wasting time on myself. It's literally 2% of your day to sit with yourself for 10 minutes in the morning and to have a little check in with yourself 10 minutes in the evening. And like Eve said, it can make the world a difference on how your
Yeah.
day goes.
I like that. 2%. I'll remember that next time.
Yeah.
Right, who's next? Tommy, I think you were actually first, Tommy, but we'll go with you next.
Definitely one of my biggest lessons from 2024 is the importance of taking breaks. I know it's something we implemented last year, Cooney, and we've implemented again this year, but the Kevin's rule, the 6 mini adventures throughout the year. Honestly, that whole concept to me like makes me like feel so excited when I think about that. But it really something. It showed me the importance of it last year. So last year, I think it was the first half of the year, within the first 6 months of the year, I took those mini adventures and one big one too. But really just showed me the importance of just taking time away from work, life itself, and just going away and detaching from the busyness, being productive, the stress, the anxiety of life itself, because it can just be super overwhelming at times. And the value that you can get in just taking a couple of days away from all of that to just recharge and to come back and to feel like you're ready to go again is just so valuable for any of us. And it doesn't, like, you don't have to get in a plane and go anywhere. You can go away to little breaks around the country. Something that I did last year was I went away to a poker event with the lads up in Dublin just for the weekend. And honestly, one of the things I enjoyed the most was actually just chilling out in the hotel. It was just like being in a hotel and just chilling out in the room. It just made me feel so good. And why I know that those breaks work so well is because during the second half of the year, I had no breaks, obviously down to reasons that I'm okay with, but it did show me, like, come the end of the year, just how almost, I'm not going to say burnt out I was, but just how stressed I was and how tired I was just from everything that kind of went on, obviously with the whole cabin and that, but just not having that weekend or that breakaway to, like I said, just detach from things. So definitely one of my biggest lessons is just the value and importance of just taking a break for yourself. And like I said, it could just be 2 days, it can be 3 days. You don't have to get a plane. You can just go off somewhere quiet for yourself. Find somewhere quiet for yourself, cheap to go in Ireland, even though I know that can be a bit difficult, but there is little spots around there that you can do that, and just how good you feel from the moment you take that break to the end of that break, and then you come back with a renewed sense of energy, optimism, positivity about taking on the next couple of weeks or months, but also knowing then at the end of that couple of weeks and months you have another break to come up to look forward to. It's almost like a reward system that you have for yourself, that okay, I'm going to give my all to these next couple of weeks and months, knowing that I have this little breakaway at the end of it. It's a really nice system to have in place to allow you to do the things, to achieve the things that you want to do.
I couldn't agree
I love
more
it.
with
And
that.
it's like
Yeah.
fun first is a concept that I think it goes with, is like when you're planning, is like you actually have to plan in the fun, which sounds like weird, but it's all those things. And that's even with Kevin's rule. I look at them as, those things where you would have had it in the past where you go away and do something, whether it's like, I don't know, catch up with friends or weekend, you're like, oh my God, I needed that. I didn't know I needed it, but I really needed that. And it's like, yeah, if we can actually plan them strategically to have them across the year, it's always going to be good, because they're often, with Kevin's rule, they're usually things that you want to do. Will say like, oh yeah, I'd love to go do that, but unless you actually plan it, you're not going to. So I know Eva has already said they're planning like a hotel weekend away next year, and it's something random as well. Is it? I think we're all the same. Like, there's something about staying in hotels. It's like when you're in a hotel, it's just like some mental thing compared to even going like B&Bs. It's like just when I'm in a hotel, it's like you're on holiday or something. It's just a different frame of mind. But that your kind of lesson kind of ties in with my last one, and then we'll go into a few quick fire ones. Mine was like, essentially you were saying about taking breaks. It's like rest and recovery days. So obviously, I know and we all know that you need to take rest days. You can't just work out every day. But what I kind of started implementing was, and I just labeled them like recovery days. So what I used to do before is when I wasn't resting, when I wasn't in the gym, I would pack that day full of other stress. So it's like, oh, I'm not in the gym, so now today I can work 15 hours because I'm not going to the gym. And what I was doing was just replacing the physical stress of training with like other stress. And when we look at it across a week, let's say you train for 5 days a week for an hour, that's 5 hours. You still have 163 hours in the week. Most of people's stress is going to be the mental and emotional stress that work and everything else brings. That all has a cost as well. That you have to recover from that. It's not just physical recovery. And what I started doing was treating those rest days like actually recovery. So it's like, don't fill your time with more stress. And then it's like, how can I actually not just physically recover by not training, mentally and emotionally? So it's like, even for me, I would start being like, can I stay off my phone? Can I do things like, go to a sauna, go for a walk, get out in nature? And I would try and couple as much stuff as I could. And even something that worked well for me was like, okay, the hour I had for the gym, don't put anything in there. Or if you're going to put something that's recovery based, don't just work longer, And I think that when I started actually focusing on recovery outside of just not training, I've seen a lot more progress in my body, in everything really, and just in life in general. I just felt better. My energy level was higher, and it's definitely something that I think as well as we get older, you need to focus more on recovery. Obviously, physically, our bodies change, but even again, mentally, emotionally, we have a lot more stresses, responsibilities. So it becomes even more important to recover. So it's like stress plus rest equals growth. You need enough rest. And most of us are probably not giving ourselves enough fully mental, emotional, and physical rest.
Yeah, I think what ties in with both of what you and Tommy were saying there is giving yourself time to be creative. We're all creative beings, and allowing yourself, whether that's true, taking your break and giving time to tapping into your creativity, trying something new, letting that like child version of yourself come out and just play and not having all the answers. I think that's hugely important because it really lets your mind open up to just bringing that childlike sense back into your life, tapping into joy. And it's so important. And I find even when I've given more time to that, to just be creative and not knowing, like just testing out new things and not actually knowing how to do it, but just allowing my creativity, I come back from that so much energy, so much more ideas. It's like giving your little inner child time to play. And I think as we get older, we forget about that and life gets quote unquote serious and we forget about that little part of us.
And that's actually like literally in order to be creative side of your brain, you need to be actually rested. It's why like you often won't come up with the ideas when you're dealing with the stress itself. Because again, stress is like your fight or flight mode. You're just trying to survive. So you're not going to be creative in there. It's like, keep me alive. It's actually when we rest and recover that we get those ideas and we get the ability to be creative, Right, we have any quick fire hacks or little life lessons? Gone.
I'm not.
I'm still here, but
Can you see me?
a couple of what she calls silly ones. I have a couple of little
I'm still here.
little hacks. One is an air fryer. If you don't use an air fryer, I don't know what you're doing with your life. The best hack. If you can't cook, you don't need to. You literally just need an air fryer. That's all. And the second one for me was another appliance. It's actually I think Eve was saying it's a foamer for milk, but I don't know if you've noticed this. Like basically, influencers realize you can like mix your pre-workouts and you can mix anything in a glass with this foamer. So like they started using it for that online, and then it's now become this appliance that instead of just foaming milk, it's like used in your I used it like to mix pre-workouts or mix anything, and it's actually such a great hack because I don't, before you have to put it into a shaker, try and shake it up. You literally can just put it into a glass, press this button, and it mixes it, and you're good. So yeah, it's funny how these appliances that are one social media. Just some influencers started putting it up, I think, and then all of a sudden now it's now a fitness gadget. Does anyone have any other little hacks?
I say a little one, even though it may seem very simple and people may already know this, but maybe they don't take the action on it. Honestly, just simply writing your goals down, the importance of actually, rather than just thinking or saying your goals to people, write them down. You know, there's been many studies done and shown that the people who write their goals down are far more likely to the end result of those goals, because essentially it bridges the gap from you thinking about the goal to actually taking the actionable steps to go and to do the goal. So I know it may sound very, very simple and people probably hear it a lot, but honestly, take time out of your day to write your goals down. I know that's why obviously we had the webinar on Sunday or Saturday, Matt, which again was obviously hugely valuable. And I'm going to plug that. If anyone wants the link to that, just send one of us a message and we'll send you that webinar.
Yeah, I think what you were just saying there, Tommy, as well, the actual stats, I only saw the stats on this yesterday, but like if you write down your goals, you're actually 39% more likely to succeed in them. And then if you actually write down your goals and you get accountability, you're like, I think 68% more likely to achieve them. So like the difference there is just crazy. And I think like I would have definitely been very resistant to writing goals down in the past, thinking it was pointless or it doesn't make a difference. But it's honestly a game changer. And especially like even seeing a lot of our clients that were at the webinar last year versus the webinar this year, and they're all messaging me like, this is what I wrote down last year, and look, by actually writing it down, look what I've been able to achieve. And it's unreal to see that.
I think also once you write them down, putting them somewhere where you're looking at them every day, like whether it's on your work desk or like behind, like I have it on a wall that I'm always looking at. Okay, these are my goals, or even writing them down like they've already been achieved. Like I ran 10K, I did this, and then you're looking at it and you're like, oh, there's a version of me that's completed those, so you're kind of even more pushed to go and do it.
I think Brian Tracy said as well that only 3% of people write down their goals. So literally by just writing them down, you're in the top 3% of the world already, which is kind of crazy to think that only 3% write them down. Tommy, you said it's obvious. It's probably not obvious. 97% of people are not doing it.
Maybe they can't write.
So Eve, what were your silly...
One of my silly hacks was that, like, I absolutely love sourdough bread, and if anyone eats sourdough bread, they'll know that when you buy a loaf of it, it's gone like rock hard in like 2 or 3 days. So like it's actually like a block of cement. But I actually saw this on like, I think I saw it on Instagram or something last year, that if your sourdough bread goes hard and stale, if you run it under the tap and then you toast it, it actually freshens it up again. So it's like having a brand new loaf of fresh bread.
Do that with a pita bread as well. Before you put it in the toaster, wet it and put it in the toaster, and it'll pop out. It'll pop
But yeah,
out.
I don't use the toaster either. Don't put any wet appliances in the toaster because you might, like, that could be dangerous. But I'm air frying the bread, so it's like just a wet piece of bread going into the air fryer.
That's actually a game changer. It's not that's not silly at all.
That is my biggest life hack.
Of 2024.
These are interesting
Anybody
hacks.
have any other little ones before we get to the... I forgot we had to do a random question, which I've just gotten up.
I can't think of any like that.
weird appliances or anything? No, we're all good.
I have to
Okay,
say I'm
so
pretty
this question
poor
is
with
funny,
those little
actually.
hack kind of things that but I like to hear them though.
Yeah, they're always interesting, I think. But the random question is: do you have any unusual fears?
Clowns, but that's certainly not unusual.
Clowns.
Clowns and birds would probably be my top 2 fears.
Birds.
Birds, yeah, have you ever watched Birds, the movie that's so old? Like it's so bad. The birds are plastic in it, but I watched it when I was like 4 years of age, and you get attacked by crows, and it's kind of scared me for life.
I won't be watching it.
Yeah. Well, if you watch it now, the birds are
didn't-
actually
you didn't say
plastic.
that
You're
right.
like,
Oh, right, okay.
but back in the day, it was like one of the scariest movies of all time, and I watched it when I was like 4.
Anyone else?
Unusual
Any unusual
fears.
fears? I can't think.
Fears.
Well, I'm afraid of noises on plane or lack of noises. It has to be like a certain level of noise. You know, when you're in a plane and you hear like suddenly everything gets silent. No, It sounds
can't
like the
do
engines are
noise.
failing, and I
No
think we're
noise or too
dying
much
every time.
noise.
Yeah, it has
What's
to
the
be like
optimal level of noise in a plane?
steady noise. If the noise gets too loud, I kind of think something's going wrong, and if the noise gets too quiet, I think that like the engines have
The
failed
plane's
or
dropping.
something. Yeah.
God bless anyone that's sitting next to you on a flight.
I can't think of any right now unusual fears. I'm sure I probably do. But it's probably not an unusual fear, but I have like a massive fear of space.
I think
Space.
that's
Like-
usual.
Which
Having
kind of
space around
space?
you or the space above us?
Yes, sorry, I'll rephrase that. Yes, the space above us.
Personal space.
Yeah, personally.
I mean,
It's the opposite
Do
of
not,
claustrophobic.
do not come into my personal space.
yeah. Oh my God, is it the opposite of claustrophobic? That's weird.
Sharon, do you have any fears or unusual
I don't
fears?
really have any fears. I think maybe something is like it doesn't so much scare me as just now. You maybe used to be a bit of a phobia, but it's not anymore. But like more freaks me out is like sauces all over my food or my dinner coming out with like gravy everywhere. That would, even talking about it now, I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, it's so
I can
funny.
get
Sharon
that,
used to
though.
have to put everything in individual. You couldn't have anything touching each other. Could it? Food-wise.
No,
before.
I'm gone much better. I can have a touch
Yeah.
now, but the sauce and the gravy stuff just has to be separate, like it does. Yeah.
I can't think. I have heights, like, but everyone's afraid of heights. But I definitely have couple of weird fears. But I don't really. I try not to think of them. It's not until it happens that I'm like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
I forgot. I'm terrified of that thing.
Do you know what I'm actually really? Do you know what actually puts so much fear into me? Which is quite funny because I'm a lifeguard, but children in a pool.
I get
It
that,
puts
though.
so much fear in me. Like even children who can swim, I'm on high alert.
Especially when there's a lot of
Yeah.
them in there.
Yeah, a lot of children in a pool. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fear.
That's
That
why
means you're
Sharon-
good at your
you see
job, Sharon.
Lifeguarding, yeah. When you see Sharon lifeguarding and pacing the pool with like crazy eyes, that she's doing a job.
Or don't bring them in because it scares me.
Yeah.
Right, guys, that's all for the first one back. Hope you enjoyed it. I know I did. It's good to be back, and yeah, looking forward to 2025.
Have a great year.
See you next week.
Yeah, happy 2025.
See you next
Bye.
week.
Thanks for listening to the Future Fitness Lifestyle. If you found value in today's show, please take a moment to leave us a review and share it with someone who could benefit. Every single review or share helps us grow the show and will allow us to keep bringing you more great content. Stay tuned for weekly episodes where we'll be sharing more tips and insights to help you take your health, fitness, and mindset to the next level. Thanks again for joining us, and remember, consistency beats perfection. See you in the next episode.